You know, to many Americans, Memorial Day is the unofficial start of summer. But before we hit the pools, beaches, and backyard cookouts, I wanted to show a bit of my gratitude to those that have served and are no longer with us. And I don't know their stories, I don't know their names, but what I do know is that I can remember their sacrifice. Now, we're here at the St. Augustine National Cemetery, and we're going to pay our respects and hopefully learn a thing or two, and I hope you decide to tag along with me today. So we're in the grounds here of the St. Augustine National Cemetery. Before we go any further, I'm going to wait for those sprinklers to stop because water and camera equipment don't really mix well. But here are the grounds. I think they're almost an acre and a half. So it's a pretty small cemetery, but within this acre and a half, there are nearly 3,000 soldiers buried here. Now you're probably wondering how there's 3,000 soldiers buried here because there clearly isn't 3,000 headstones. Well, a large contingent of these soldiers are buried beneath these three coquina pyramids here. So I'm just give you another closer look at the coquina pyramids here. Like I said, underneath these three pyramids are the remains of nearly 1,400 soldiers who were killed during the Seminole Wars here. Now, some of these soldiers here were part of the famed Dade Massacre. Now, if you don't know about the Dade Massacre, on December 23rd of 1835, Major Francis L. Dade and a company of about 100 U.S. soldiers would leave what is now modern-day Tampa, and they were sent to relieve the garrison at Fort King, which is near Ocala. And on the way there, I believe on December 28th of 1835, they'd be ambushed by Seminole warriors there, and all but three would be killed. Now, of those three survivors, I read that only one managed to make it back to Tampa to tell the story of the Dade Massacre here. But all those soldiers, including their commander, are buried beneath the pyramids here. Now, also within one of these pyramids here is an Alabama native whose name is David Moniak, and he was the first Native American to attend the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in New York. He was a Creek Indian. He graduated in 1822, and he re-enlisted in the Army during the Indian Wars here. Now, Major Moniak was the only officer killed during the Battle of Wahoo Swamp in Sumter County, Florida, on November 21st of 1836. Now, Moniak's remains were moved here, along with the victims of the Dade Massacre that we touched on moments ago. And Mr. Moniak's remains are below one of these pyramids here, along with 1,400 other American soldiers here. So something that I wasn't expecting, but I guess it makes sense when you think about it. There is a contingent of Union soldiers buried here. All these graves here are from United States colored troops. We also have a grave or two from the 33rd Regiment of New York Infantry just before us. But when you think about it, the state of Florida seceded from the Union in 1861. Well, shortly after that, a steam frigate sailed into the harbor here in St. Augustine, Florida, and essentially the mayor ceded control to the Union forces, and the city of St. Augustine remained in Union hands for a large duration of the war. Well, you had soldiers here manning the garrison of what was called Fort Marion. It is known as the Castillo de San Marcos, but it makes sense that soldiers here would have died either from training, diseases, or anything else of that nature. One of the dates here is May 6th of 1864. So that is interesting. I wasn't expecting that. But right before us here, this line, you have a large contingent of United States colored troops buried here, and a couple from the 33rd Regiment of New York Infantry. So what you're seeing here is the grave of Martin Francis Harding, and he was a brigadier general in the Union Army during the American Civil War. He was born on June 26 of 1837, and he would die December 12th of 1923. He was appointed brigadier general on July 6 of 1864. Before that, he served as a colonel in the 12th Pennsylvania Reserve Regiment. He would lose his left arm in the Mine Run campaign, but continued serving in the Army here. He would command a division in the 22nd Corps during the Battle of Fort Stevens, and he would retire in December of 1870, and he would become a lawyer in Chicago, and he would also have a home here in St. Augustine, where he would die and be put to rest here. So, the grave of Martin Davis Hardin. What a neat story, I had no idea. And like we touched on, he would lose his arm during the war, but continued serving and lived a long life after the war here. Now, one thing you're going to see in any national cemetery is you're going to see headstones that are just simply unknown. And like I said in the beginning of the video, we don't know their names, we don't know their stories, but we can remember their sacrifice. So here is the grave of James William Dell. He was born in Kentucky in 1876. He enlisted in the U.S. Army in October of 1897 and fought in the Spanish-American War and World War I. Now, he'd be cited for gallantry for his actions, and he would become a staff sergeant, and he was selected to serve as a pallbearer for the interment of the unknown soldier of World War I at Arlington National Cemetery. Dell would retire at the rank of Master Sergeant after 32 years of service. As a civilian, Dell was appointed the first superintendent of Zachary Taylor National Cemetery and later oversaw the St. Augustine Cemetery right here. He would die on July 28th of 1968, and he is currently buried in Section C, Site 207 of the St. Augustine National Cemetery. So those were just a handful of the thousands of stories that lay in this field behind me here. I learned a few new things about people that are buried here that are literally about 10 minutes from my house, so I'm happy I took some time out of my morning to come here and learn about these brave service members. I hope you all have a happy and safe Memorial Day. I hope it's filled with great quality time with family and friends, but maybe at some point today, take a couple minutes and give thanks to the people that can enjoy today because they made the ultimate sacrifice. With that being said, we'll catch you on the next one.